5 minutes for Mr. Van Orden from the great state of Wisconsin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate it greatly. Yeah, just some general comments about rail. It's one of the key components of intermodal movement of goods, and I understand that perfectly. I live in a town called Prairie du Chien. It's along the Mississippi River. If you do not like trains, you don't live there. We've got probably 60 trains going through every day. You're well aware that we recently had a derailment from the BNSF Railroad a little farther north, about 45 minutes up from where I live. We immediately coordinated with the BNSF Railroad, FEMA, NTSB, the FRA, our local county officials, Crawford County officials, Congressman Ashley Hensey from across the river, but more importantly with Chairman Nels. And I really appreciate your support. He also made several members of his staff available. Leading up to this derailment, we had record flooding on the Mississippi River, and I called the BNSF Railroad and told them that I was distinctly uncomfortable with the conditions of the tract. BNSF Railroad told me in a rather condescending manner that don't worry, Congressman, we've been working on these railroads for over 100 years. Everything is fine. 6 days later, there was a railroad car floating down the Mississippi River containing paint towards a dam. If that dam had been collapsed, or if it had been damaged and it collapsed, that could lead to a catastrophic cascading failure of the locks and dams along the Mississippi River. So needless to say, I was uncomfortable with their approach to this. One of the immediate things that I want to tell you about, Mr. Jeffries, is that I understand that you have Ask Rail, and I think that that's a fantastic long-term digital solution. I'd like you to think about using a short-term analog solution, because one of the problems was when our guys on the ground, these train cars are ripped apart. They don't have Ask Rail, or they had Ask Rail, but they didn't quite know how to use it yet because they weren't fully trained, and they couldn't tell what was in the carts because the placards, I don't think, are spaced enough on the side. So if you only have 4 placards per car, or whatever the minimum requirement is, if you just doubled those placards, it would have granted a lot of relief to our emergency workers on the ground. So if you could maybe take a note of that, that would be great. So one of my concerns is this, is that the general public is losing confidence in the railroad. And I think that that's a terrible thing to do, because if the railroad stops, the country stops. And that's just clear. If our trucks stop, the country stops also. And I think part of the problem is that we're not able to turn around these investigations fast enough, and there's several different government agencies that should be able to message this better. I understand, I've read all of your detailed testimony from everybody on the panel. I appreciate it greatly, and I know that the rail safety is actually increasing, but the public confidence in the rail is decreasing at a reciprocal rate. So I think one of the things is, and I spoke to NTSB again yesterday, and I'm going to introduce some legislation to increase the amount of rail inspectors that we have. And Mr. Chairman, I would like your support on this.
Certainly.
Okay, so we'll be introducing some legislation to increase our rail inspectors to make sure that we can turn around these investigations faster, and that we can do some better messaging both from Congress and then from the private industries and also the government agencies. And I just want to know, is that something that you would support?
I think the sooner we can get the results of investigations, the better. And if this helps, which it sounds like it would, turn investigations around more quickly, absolutely.
And then do you have confidence in these private companies to conduct the types of inspections, even when they have some external stimulus from maybe, I don't know, like a member of Congress who lives right next to the railroad tracks and whose grandchildren are 3 blocks away from that? Do you have confidence that maybe in the future these folks will start listening to outside sources?
Well, I think it's in railroad's best interest to operate as safely as possible, and that we're taking steps every day to do that. And if an incident occurs, we've got to take lessons learned from that incident and apply them so it doesn't happen again.
Okay, well, your industry across the board, and I know Mr. Reagan and I have talked to each other before, that you're probably not related to Ronald Reagan, let's just say that, but you guys have my support. And so if there's anything we can do from my office, please reach out. With that, I yield back, sir.